EU negotiators are meeting their British counterparts in London today for the latest round of Brexit trade talks. But the two sides seem as far apart as ever. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that without an agreement by mid-October, he's prepared to walk away in a no-deal scenario. And tomorrow, he'll introduce a new bill designed to amend the previously agreed withdrawal agreement. Angela Bentz reports.
The Brexit talks are continuing with an eighth round of negotiations between the EU and the UK. On Monday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson set a middle of October deadline to agree a trade deal, or else the UK will walk away without one, something which the EU says it wants to avoid but is prepared for.
While we are determined to reach an agreement with the UK, the EU will be ready, in the event of a no-deal scenario, to trade with the UK on WTO terms.
Downing Street regards Brexit as an opportunity for Britain to take back control of its money, borders and laws. But the EU says the UK must follow some of its rules if it wants to trade with the bloc. On state aid, London wants to be able to give subsidies to companies. Yet Brussels believes that that could give firms an unfair advantage, which might harm EU competitors.
If you are giving preferential access to a large market, as the EU would be doing, you want to make sure that the people you're giving preferential access to are not subsidising their exports. I mean, this is against World Trade Organization rules as well, but the World Trade Organization takes time for disputes to come through.
The issue of fishing rights has proven particularly fraught. From next year, the UK wants to control who fishes in its waters, while Brussels wants the current arrangements based on quotas to continue. While fishing is only worth a small fraction of Britain's GDP, it's a highly symbolic issue.
From right at the top, Boris Johnson, the chief negotiator, David Frost, we have had assurances after assurance that that fishing is right at the top of the list of priorities for this government.
Both sides say they're ready to make some concessions, and the EU is known for making last-minute deals. Last year, Boris Johnson promised voters what he called an oven-ready Brexit deal during his election campaign. With just 38 days remaining until his own deadline, the heat is being turned up for London and Brussels to reach a trade agreement, if one is even possible. Angela Bentz, Euronews.
Our correspondent Tygen Wright has been following developments for us from London.
It seems at this stage to be escalating rhetoric even further. On the one hand, you've got Downing Street sources briefing journalists that Boris Johnson's intention with this new legislation regarding Northern Ireland and state aid does not intend to tear up trade talks. He only wants to clarify aspects of the withdrawal agreement. But then you've got Boris Johnson's inner circle briefing his former employers in the Daily Telegraph, which is this interesting headline today. Boris Johnson will tell EU leaders that the Brexit deal never made sense. It says that it was contradictory, ambiguous, that it must be rewritten. He'll claim that it leaves Northern Ireland isolated from the rest of the UK in a way which was not foreseen. There were, of course, plenty in Northern Ireland who had plenty of foresight on that. And he says that he won't back down in seeking to have the withdrawal agreement rewritten. Now, keep in mind, this is the same agreement which he presented to the UK electorate last December as an oven-ready deal to get Brexit done. And it's incredibly, impactful that at a time like this, when you've got the main stumbling blocks being fisheries and state aid, and they look increasingly intractable, you've got David Frost, the Brexit chief negotiator from the British side, saying that we've now been talking for 6 months and can no longer afford to go over well-trodden ground. Well, now it seems that Boris Johnson wants to go back to the well-trodden ground of Northern Ireland. In this article as well, there is a blaming of Theresa May for her role in writing the first draft of the withdrawal agreement. And talking about going back to the past, we're hearing all the same murmurings from different interest groups here. Moderate Conservative MPs telling the Prime Minister overnight that this is a dangerous step, that seeking to renegotiate the withdrawal agreement sends out the wrong signal to international partners, other countries with which the UK hopes to forge trade deals. Most important of them all, with the United States. You had a Democratic congressman talking to state radio here this morning, warning that if Britain does anything to undermine the Good Friday Agreement or the open border in Ireland, that a trade deal is off. As the latest box set of Brexit gets underway, the storyline, Rosie, is sounding all too familiar.
Tig, thank you very much in Westminster. Let's go over to Brussels to speak to our correspondent, Shona Murray. Shona, talking about the withdrawal agreement, the EU yesterday felt the need to say to London that it was really important they respected the terms they've already agreed. There doesn't seem to be too much trust between the two negotiating parties now. How do you think that is going to affect this next round of talks?
Well, that's very true, Rosie. I mean, trust was very much in short supply as it was, given how difficult the negotiations about the future relationship have been, but also given how difficult the negotiations about the withdrawal agreement itself were over the past couple of years. So undoubtedly, that meeting today between Michel Barnier and David Frost in London will be heavily dominated by this latest revelation that the UK could decide to resile from the internationally recognised withdrawal agreement. But I'm joined now from a perspective from the European Parliament by Philippe Lambert from the Brexit Steering Committee in the Parliament. Philippe, what's your interpretation? Is this bluffing for the UK to get a better deal at this height of the negotiation?
Well, if this is bluffing, it's quite clumsy. Because if you want to coerce a negotiating partner in basically striking a deal with you by saying that you might actually not abide by a previous deal with the same partner, that is not exactly the best way to inspire trust and incite your negotiating partner to do it. Now, I do believe that the entourage of Boris Johnson, and specifically Dominic Cummings, is a Trump-like person for whom there should be no bounds to national sovereignty. So basically, any nation should be free to do whatever it wants and should not be bound by international treaties. And what we saw yesterday, I think, emanates from this side of the Boris Johnson's team, if you can call it like that. Now, will Boris Johnson just follow Dominic Cummings up to the bitter end? I don't know. Because he's also someone with more an opportunistic kind of person. But, well, you never know. But that really poisons the atmosphere. And I think that Michel Barnier should ask, as the first question from David Frost, a strict commitment from the British government to abide by the withdrawal agreement in all its details. And if he gets that, then we can continue the negotiation. But if he doesn't, that means that for the British government, the option of not abiding by the withdrawal agreement is an option, is real. In that case, well, I think any further discussion is pointless.
What's the feeling here in Brussels around what was revealed yesterday by the Financial Times? That after, this time last year when the withdrawal agreement was being painstakingly negotiated, that now that the government in the UK might resile from it. What's the feeling around that?
Well, it's a mixture, because if you talk to leaders, which I did yesterday, they will not conceal that they were not really surprised, knowing the kind of character Boris Johnson is. But they were, of course, not amused, because indeed we committed, well, you know, that the EU and its member states, normally all of them, are standing by a rules-based international order, and of course dealing with a British government that moves away from that vision towards something like might is right or political expediency is right. That is, of course, a bitter pill to swallow. But we saw it coming, to be honest.
And what do you think about the negotiations on the free trade agreement as it stands? The issue around state aid, we hear that, the UK government, particularly people like Boris Johnson, they're not really that interested in state aid in the first place. And also fisheries, although it's a very emotive issue, it doesn't really apply to all EU member states and not to very much of the UK economy. So do you think this is what's your interpretation about these being a hill to die on?
I think that we Europeans should stop thinking that Boris Johnson and his team think like most of us do. This is not a matter of pursuing economic interest. I don't think that Boris Johnson has an economic strategy to start with. I do believe that for him and his entourage, Dominic Cummings being the first, what counts is nationalism, and especially English nationalism. So we want our nation to know no bounds. We want the power of this government to know no bounds. That is what preoccupies them. And so even if they do not intend to pour massive state aid into British companies, they do not want to be told by someone else, do it or don't do it. Yeah. So it's really the refusal of a rules-based world order.
Just very quickly, if you were to bet, Does this mean that we're closer to no deal or a possible deal?
Well, personally, my money has been for quite a few months on having no deal with the British government. But you never know. Boris Johnson is the ultimate opportunist, and he may find it politically expedient to strike a deal, whatever that means, with the European Union before December the 31st.
Okay, Philippe Lambert, Belgian MEP and member of the Brexit Steering Committee, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.